Hi there, it's Christy with the Chirp YouTube channel. I hope that you're having a fantastic day. I'm happy to be here chatting with you today. Thank you very much for watching this video. I would like to talk about why I don't recommend sign language for kids with developmental delays most of the time. Now let us separate developmental delays from hearing impairment. Hearing impairment requires a way to communicate that is portable and that allows for expression of all of the many things that we wish to express in life. If we're going to go the route of not pushing verbal language for children who are hearing impaired, then we need to provide them with another complete way of expressing all of the wide range of things that humans wish to communicate in a nonverbal way. And sign is a great way to do that. For children with developmental disorders and delays, I don't recommend sign. And this is kind of a controversial point for many professionals I've worked with. I have worked with professionals who were mainly part of the hearing impaired community when it came to offering supports. And they honestly believed that those sign programs that people use, whether it's ASL or another language similar to American Sign Language, in other countries, obviously it's not called American Sign Language, it's different, believed that those languages could be equally applied to children with developmental delays and disorders. From what I've seen, I don't believe that that's the best way to try to teach these kids. Our population of children with developmental disorders is hopefully going to learn verbal language at some point. They are delayed, and yet verbal language is our ultimate goal. And so we want to start fostering verbal language as early as possible. Another thing we need to differentiate at this point is baby sign language. I have no problem with baby sign. There is no good research that shows that it actually facilitates language development or verbal language. So I don't say it's a great idea because it is some effort put into something that hasn't shown any benefit so far. However, if you wish to start teaching your child to sign cracker when she wants a cracker and is so far nonverbal, there's no problem with that. If you want to teach a child to say water, okay, no problem. But keep in mind that motor skills are also not that well defined early in childhood. So it's hard to do this if you're 9 months old. It's not likely to happen. And by the time kids are able to do this, they're probably able to use their mouth to say verbal sounds as well. Keep that in mind. Back to our children with developmental delays. In a similar vein to a baby who cannot yet say the word water, and we're trying to teach her to sign it, our children with developmental delays are usually delayed in a number of different categories. So if a child is verbally delayed, it's because of various things that are going wrong with motor muscles. So whether it's sequencing the muscle movements required for speech, whether it is processing the motor movements necessary for speech, or processing the language that the child wants to produce, or the words, or the linking up of a thought with words, all of those things are delayed, then probably the same things are going to be delayed that require making some sort of a movement to communicate. So motor movements are not intrinsically easier than speech movements because speech is a motor movement. Plus, it also requires a lot going on in the head, as does moving your fingers. So keep in mind that if a child is delayed, motor delays are probably part of the overall delay. Autism has motor movement difficulties, frequently something called apraxia. Most children with autism, for example, have motor difficulties. Many of them have something that is called apraxia, and it is not necessarily diagnosed as a separate thing. A lot of times it is part of the diagnosis of autism. And it means that they have difficulty sequencing motor movements. So they have difficulty making their muscles move in the right order to move smoothly as they walk, or to speak smoothly rather than kind of more like a robot, or to brush their teeth in a smooth, even motion. My favorite little person with autism has a lot of difficulty with apraxia. Actually, she's now a freshman and she's 16, so she's no longer a little person. But she's very stiff, especially when she is angry. It gets even more so. Her voice is very robotic. She has a lot of difficulty producing language, producing speech sounds that are intelligible. And we've been working on that since she was itty bitty teeny tiny, and it's improved a huge amount. Her progress has been amazing. It's incredible. We never worked on sign with her. We worked using communication books. We worked using a lot of verbal modeling of very short, one word at a time at the beginning, and then we expanded a little bit. But it's a long process. Now that we've discussed the motor difficulties that come along with trying to use sign, and the fact that a lot of our kids with developmental delays can't succeed with sign, it's equally frustrating to speaking for them. Let's also discuss the fact that when people say that they are using sign with a child who has a developmental disorder, what they usually mean is they're teaching the kid please before they give them something, and more. Usually those are what people start with. Those are not meaningful signs. Those signs can mean anything. The child is not connecting one thing to that sign. For example, if I say more, do I mean more water? Do I mean more light? Do I mean more cookies? Do I mean more cats? I could mean more anything. And our children with delays do not connect this to meaning the word more. They connect this to meaning give me what I want. And we're supposed to interpret what that is. It's not a good communication tool. It's not specific enough. And please is the same way. It doesn't mean please. It means give me, gimme, gimme, gimme. And that is how our kids use these two signs. They're not specific. They're not helpful for teaching communication. If you want to teach specific, meaningful communication, use a communication book. They are portable. Everyone understands them because they are visual. They are visual. Our kids with developmental delays don't understand verbal language as well as they understand visual language, and they don't understand motor movements the way that they understand visual language. So it only makes sense we should use the language that works best for them, which is visual symbols or pictures. I have a video about that I will link to in the info box down below, so don't forget to take a peek down there so you can learn a little bit more about this important topic. The third reason I don't recommend exclusively sign for children with developmental disorders is because they have a difficulty with communication. They probably don't look at you when you communicate, so if you're trying to sign to them, they probably aren't watching it. They're probably watching somewhere else. Even if they are looking directly at you, they're probably not. They're probably looking right by you. And most of them, because of the social aspect of their disorder, don't look at you when they're asking for something either. So they might sign water and you're not even looking, and then they have a meltdown because you didn't give them what they asked for. Well, because you weren't watching, because they didn't check that you weren't watching. And that is a huge, huge problem. That's one of the problems that I have with augmentative communication devices. We don't use them properly. Number one, our kids think that they're a toy and don't use them as a tool to communicate. Number two, we're not teaching them that this isn't just for pushing buttons. We have to get someone else's attention and show them what we want. And that never happens. I've never seen these things be successful for a child with an autism spectrum disorder. There are some cases, of course, where they are successful. For example, with motor difficulties, exclusively motor difficulties, where someone's cognitive ability and language ability are right on par with where they should be developmentally. They just don't have the motor movements to speak. So maybe cerebral palsy, for example, or some sort of a brain injury where just the body is affected. For example, Lou Gehrig's disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS. Those devices are perfect for that sort of progressive illness that takes away motor ability but not cognitive ability. When we're talking about a global delay, which means over all areas of development, a device is not a recommended path. At least from my perspective, I know there are tons and tons of speech pathologists who help families use these. I have never seen great strides made with a device the way that I have with a very low-tech communication book, such as I have shown you in previous videos and that I use in my classrooms. There is something about the fact that there are no buttons to fool with, that it's very practical, very simple, and it's very easy to progress from one level of difficulty to the next. If our child is very basic and is just beginning to learn how to communicate, the only thing that's required is we help him to take the picture off and hand it to us. And we say, water, and we get the child water. This is a child connecting visually to the item that he wants, doing a social behavior, handing it to another person, and then getting his need met. All of the different areas of communication are happening in this interaction. He doesn't have to look right in my face, but he knows that I have received his request because he put it in my hand. That is an interaction, and that's what we want to foster with our children who have developmental delays, especially in the social and communication skills. Sign is not the same in that a child doesn't have to be looking at you, as I mentioned, and it's not a universally understood language the way that visuals are. If I go to a grocery store as a nonverbal person with a cognitive delay, and I know that I want lettuce, the likelihood of my being able to remember what the sign for lettuce is and actually produce it, even though I have some motor challenges, is very slim. The chance that the person at the grocery store will actually understand me because I don't remember the sign, because I can't produce it accurately, because my sign is messy, but then also because the person doesn't probably know sign language. And so all of these things add up to the fact that I'm not going to be able to get what I want by communicating that way in the normal world. On the other hand, if I go into a store with my communication book, I point to a picture of lettuce, I can always look at the pictures and say, even if I can't remember the word, even if I can't remember the sign, I can point to that whether or not I can remember the word. And I can pretty much guarantee you that the grocery store people will be able to take me to the lettuce so that I can get it. You see, as this plays out, this little imaginary scenario, you can see that visuals are going to be much more useful everywhere, in my home, in the world outside, but they're also going to be much simpler. So if I have the image of lettuce in my head, learning the word that goes with the image is difficult. Learning two different words, so the way to say lettuce and the way to sign lettuce, those are two different words. Even though one of them is a motor word and the other one is a verbal word, they're both motor words. I have to remember two different patterns of production for that one word. Most of our kids with developmental delays, because they are going to end up as verbal users for the most part, they pretty much focus on the verbal production of that image. So they're going to first remember lettuce. If they remember lettuce, it's less likely they're going to remember the sign for lettuce. I don't even know what that is. I don't know why I chose lettuce. With children who have developmental disorders, we would never just teach the sign. We would always teach the sign plus the word. And so if they have to learn the sign, which is a motor movement, plus the word, which is motor movements of their articulators, and both of those things represent this item, they have two things to remember for that one item rather than just one, the word. As children use communication books, we pattern on top of the image the words. So each time a child picks lettuce, we say lettuce, 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 lettuce. And eventually that becomes the same for them. So every time they see the image of lettuce, the word lettuce is attached. That happens a lot quicker if there aren't two things that they have to remember every time we say lettuce. That is yet another reason why visuals are going to be easier for your child if your child has a developmental delay or disorder or some kind of diagnosis that affects communication. In addition, when children with developmental delays are taught sign, they're taught individual signs that label things. That's great. We do want our kids to be able to label things. However, what happens when they need to progress beyond the labeling stage to actually using sentences and phrases? Most of us are not well enough trained with sign to be able to help our kids make that leap. With visuals, we easily can. We expand the sentence. Instead of just having one picture, crackers, we put an I want and a please, and we say, I want crackers, please. When they are able to do that, when they start verbalizing that and are consistent with it, then we say, may I have crackers, please. We extend the sentence. When they're able to verbalize that, we start using visuals to describe things. We start using visuals to ask questions and to answer questions. And we can use visuals to teach almost all parts of speech. And what I've learned through many years of teaching using visual supports is that our kids actually use the visuals to organize what's happening in their brains. So at the beginning, language is just a big stew for them. They appear to be unable to pick out which words are the most salient. And a lot of times the little words like the, and describing words just kind of get left out, and they focus on verbs and nouns. Those are the most practical. They give us the most information. Verbs being the action words like jump or sing, and nouns being the item words like table or toy. And those are the most salient pieces of information in a sentence. But if those are the only ones we get, then we miss out on a lot of the information that a sentence or a comment can give us. And so we need to teach adjectives, which are describing words. We need to teach adverbs, which are words that describe verbs. So maybe run fast or jump high. Those are adverbs. We need to teach those. And the way to teach them is using visuals. Our kids, especially who are on the autism spectrum, but most children in general, organize their thoughts visually. We need to give them a wide range of visuals so they can put their thoughts in those different boxes so that they can actually find them later and use them appropriately to describe their own internal experiences. I have seen some great, amazing progress made from kids who have been nonverbal and who now are definitely very verbal, very social, very interactive, very fun to be with. All kids use visuals to help them learn. And from my perspective, it's best if we use those visuals purposefully and consistently, and we make that their main way to communicate so that it's easiest for them, so that it's the most meaningful for them and for the people around them, and so that it's the most likely that they're going to be able to organize their future cognitive development and communication development along these visual pathways that we create for them. It really makes it easier for everyone involved, and kids learn faster and better, and they become more social and more communicative. It's just good all around. Please don't forget to take a peek down below in the info box. Just click expand and you'll get all the information that's down there. I will put links to other information on visual communication and some of the great books that have been written on the topic, and also some more information about communication books because they're fantastic. They really do a great job of helping our kids learn to communicate more effectively. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.